Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com today for more info, or you can always email me directly through benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Michele Heeney. We're going to be discussing her amazing book, The Monkey Tree. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. Pretty much all the regular online book resellers and people. You're going to want to add this book to your shelf, and I'm going to tell you why in just a few moments. Before we go any further, though, I want to take this opportunity and point out that Michele was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business. And people you already know, I'm talking about author Reputation Press. So listen to me, if you're a writer out there who has gone through the gauntlet of writing your masterpiece, and now you've concluded, you've done it, the book is there, it's ready, but now you need help moving the book you just developed. Well, if that's you, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give and contact ARP. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and people, this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to authorreputationpress.com today and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Michele here on the line. As I mentioned, this book is one you're going to want to add to your shelf. Now, once you start to do some research on it, you're going to understand this is a poetry book. So it's filled with poetry that she has comprised over the years. But people, it is all about that proverbial monkey that we all find on our back sometimes. I mean, listen, we just can't seem to get rid of them, right? It comes up in all of these different moments whenever we're dealing with the gamut of emotions that we experience on a day-to-day basis, whenever we deal with the obstacles that life throws on our paths. That monkey is just there, man. He is just climbing. And sometimes we need to address him. Well, this poetry book does just that. It's going to help you explore those emotions and work through them in such a magnificent way. And really what I love about Michele's book, the poetry that she has written within it is something that is accessible. It's something that is relatable. It's something that truly is going to help you dive deeper and explore those emotions. Because listen, let's just call a spade a spade. As much as we would love to just live in an environment of just positivity and happiness, we understand that life isn't that way. Life has obstacles. Life has those pitfalls. There's the peaks, there's the valleys. This book does not shy away from the heartache, from the trials and the tribulations and some of those darker moments of life. But people, even in those, there is wisdom to be learned. There is wisdom to be gained. And working through it in this way, I think, is such a wonderful process. And at the end of the day, Michele's the expert, okay? It's her poems that she's written. She's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So do me a favor, sit back and strap in. We have a wonderful show ahead for you, and you are all going to relish in it in the same way that I have. So sit back and enjoy. Michele, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, Michele, listen, this is a true pleasure to have you here. I really do think that what you've comprised within your book is something wonderful because it balances beautifully all of those emotions that I was talking about before. You don't shy away from it. You're not pulling the punches, and I love that. Before we go into your book and what it is all about, Michele, start off by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself.
I'm living in New Mexico out on a Indian reservation, the Cochiti Reservation, and I've been out here for about 20 years. I came here from California, where I lived in Monterey on a ranch that was about 6,000 acres large, and wow. I was a caretaker on it. Yeah, I know. And before that, I lived in Hawaii for a while, and I also lived in the Bay Area. I lived up in Marin and San Francisco. I went out to San Francisco when I was about 22 22 or 23 after I got my RN. And it was right in the middle of the 60s. So I went through a lot of cultural changes, a lot of cultural changes through that. And anyway, so now I'm back here in a very small little town that's out in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico.
You know, Michele, thank you very much for that. There's a lot that we could go into with regards to your background, but that last little bit that you said, you know, in this small little quaint town in the middle of nowhere, sometimes, Michele, that's the best place for us to be, right? I mean, as I get older, I appreciate that solitude more and more in a place like that. Now, here's the other thing. You mentioned that you had some time in California. Well, that's where I currently am. I'm in the heart of Los Angeles here, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. But oftentimes I see myself wanting to escape the busyness of the city, right? And get out of there and get into a place like you're talking about that you are in currently in New Mexico, where it's just a very small town. Right? You got the same people around you. Everybody knows everybody. And you know, you just kind of enjoy the community. I think that there is something really to be gained and admired with that. So that'll be for the next podcast that we invite you back on for, Michele. Again, welcome to People of Distinction. It's truly a pleasure. Without further ado, it's all about the monkey tree today. So let's start off. First and foremost, I love your title, Michele. This is something that is really, it just catches your attention, right? It stops you in your tracks. So I want to hear it from you. I know we had gone into a little bit of a discussion before, but talk to us about that title and why you chose it to be the representation for your poetry book.
A lot of things come to me in a kind of unconscious way, not really thinking about it too much. It just kind of came to me after a few of my poems were all about the monkey that's on everybody's back. And that's just what came out, and it seemed appropriate to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, when we hear about the content of your poetry book, it makes perfect sense. So let's jump into that content right now, Michele. Talk to us a little bit more about the monkey tree, some of the poems that are articulated in there, the different emotions and obstacles that you uncover. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, it also has a lot to do with Buddhism, which I studied for years and years out in California at Esalen and with dear person Sogyal Rinpoche, and really solved a great many of my personal problems. And so it's also has a lot of Buddhism in it. So that's part of it, a big part of it. Yeah.
Now, from listening to you talk, and especially this connection to Buddhism, Michele, would it be fair to say that this book was comprised almost as a therapeutic process for yourself? I mean, were these poems that you kind of were working through yourself in some of your own tough moments that really helped you through?
Yes, 100%. I just moved out here to a very small town, and I was from a beautiful place in Monterey, California, and all my friends were there. My job was there. I was very, very happy there, but I knew I was going to retire, so I wanted to move somewhere smaller. And so when I got here, I hated it. I really hated it, and I had trouble with the difference in the way people are. People are from all over the country here. It's not just California for sure. It's not just New Mexico. It's from everywhere. And I'm living on an Indian reservation. So it was a real difficult, it was very difficult to go through the whole thing. So that's when I went very much introspective and started really looking at a life review, looking at myself and what I've done and what I'm doing and the people I'm around now. So that's kind of where it's at, the book.
You know, and continuing along these lines of inspiration, so we know where the poems originated for yourself and how they were therapeutic, cathartic. They just helped you work through your own emotions. Well, Michele, this very easily could have stayed right there. I mean, this could have been a poetry book that stayed on your personal shelf, or even poems that you verbally told those around you whenever they would inquire about it and try to help, again, people within your community. But you took it a step further, Michele. You wanted to get the book published and put out for the public now to be able to partake in. What inspired you to go that route?
Well, I wrote that book a good 10 years ago, and I didn't really get it out too much. I went up to Santa Fe to sell it at an art market here and there, but it wasn't really out there until just lately. The ARP called me and said they wanted to get it out. And by that time, I was kind of over the whole book and all the emotions. And, and I thought that'd be okay now. Yeah. It'd be okay now.
Absolutely. Yeah. People, again, the book is called The Monkey Tree. Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you have to go to pick it up. And Michele Heeney is the author you need to thank for bringing it to your table. Michele, let's dive back a little bit, okay? Let's talk about the love for creative writing. You mentioned a lot of these different places that you lived. You also mentioned that your background is as a registered nurse, right? Your background is in being an RN.
Yeah.
So you come from the medical field. Now, yes, there's a lot of writing with regards to that. I know firsthand because my wife is a physician. So I understand when it comes to those reports and all the information that's put in there, writing by no means is new for you. But Michele, the writing that you're putting into your reports for your patients is vastly different from poetry. So talk to us about where that love for creative writing and also for poetry comes from.
Well, that's a bit of a discussion. When I was young, my mother and I didn't have a good relationship at all. And so I was in my bedroom a lot, reading poetry books, the Oxford Book of English Verse, the American poetry books, Irish poetry books, the Oxford Book of Ireland. Mm-hmm. And I started reading first, and poetry really helped me through a very difficult time in my childhood. It really did. Yeah. Then I became a nurse. And, of course, you have to write very succinctly for the doctors about your patients on the floor. Mm-hmm. They don't want to stand there and read something that's, all fluffy and emotional. You have to get it down. Yeah. And then I became a nurse practitioner. I went to UC San Francisco and became an OB/GYN nurse. And I did that because it was the women's movement at the time. And I thought, what better way to do that than to go into women's health care? Yeah. And I did. So, and that too, you write your notes very succinctly with a very tight understanding of how it's structured. I won't go into that, but so that was another thing. And then I was writing poetry all along after I got out of school. So that's about it. Oh, and the beginning of everything was my parents had got me a childhood set of books. There were 10. And the first one was poetry. And I never got past the first book. So, and I still have them. I still have the beautiful set of these kids' books. They're all different colors. And I have all these underlines for poems that I really liked in the first set. And the rest has never, I might have been opened, but they might have been open, but they certainly weren't read. Mm-hmm. So I never got into prose until I started reading, my own stuff or novels and things. So that's about it.
Michele, I'm curious with this next one, because I know from listening to you talk how poetry has been really profound for you in terms of exploring emotions, getting them out, and being able to process and work through. Now, I by no means am a poet, right? I don't have a background in poetry, although there have been a lot of poems that I gravitated towards throughout my life. But I've always connected with music immensely. And whenever I am working through certain emotions or hardships, music has a way of reflecting and resonating with me to such a degree. And now I look at music and the lyrics in music, and that is poetry. I mean, that's a form of poetry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I want to hear it from you. What would you say, Michele? And you can keep it specific to you, or maybe, broaden it to how it reflects with others as well. But what is it about poetry and the rhythm of the words and how it progresses that resonates with people and truly helps them work through emotions?
Well, I think that's about the truest statement I've heard in a while, that music really helps. Mm-hmm. And I was in San Francisco during the 60s with Janis Joplin and, the whole gamut of people.
Yeah.
And Leonard Cohen, I love Leonard Cohen, and Van Morrison, et cetera. It just goes on and on. I was really right there and in the Fillmore and, all kinds of neat places to go listen. And it just really brings it out, because I believe if you bury this stuff in you, you get neurotic. Yeah. Neurosis comes up. So it's better to have a good look at what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, rather than bury it and get goofy, Mm-hmm. So, that's my take on it.
That's fantastic. People, I'm telling you, this is something that you need to add to your shelf. If it's just for something to help pass the time on a rainy day, this book's got what you're looking for, because these poems are magnificent and they are entertaining. But if you're also looking for something that is going to allow you to truly reflect, to truly work through thoughts and emotions and things that you have been battling with, this book's got what you're looking for as well. Michele, we have discussed so much information here today, but the one thing we haven't gotten to is your actual poetry. Now, my listening audience is going to get very upset with me if I don't push you in this direction. So without further ado, Michele, I can't think of a better way to close out of such a wonderful interview than with one of your poems. So whenever you're ready, please take it away. We are all ears.
Okay. The title of this poem is The Buddhist Request. Boundless compassion, I'm still busy climbing the slippery, slimy tree of self, growing out of the soupy swamp of samsara. Boundless compassion, the very minute I get out of this damn tree.
I love it. Listen, I thought the images were so descriptive. I mean, even like the soupy swamp, people, that gives a very distinct, a very vivid imagery. And we have all been in moments like that where we feel like we're almost walking through a slimy swamp, right? That's like molasses. And we are moving so slowly, trying to get through that. That was incredible, short, sweet, but absolutely resonating with myself. And I know it resonates with our listening audience as well.
Oh, good. Thank you.
People, I'm telling you, you know where you got to go. I know I don't have to say it again, but I'm going to re-impress it once again. It's Amazon. It's Barnes & Noble. It's called The Monkey Tree, and it's by Michele Heeney. Head on over there today. Pick up your copies. Get lost in all of it. And while you're at it, grab a second copy for someone else as a gift to add to their shelf, because this is truly something special. Michele, this has been a wonderful pleasure, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.